She was loving and caring. She called herself dorky and clumsy and was a self-proclaimed lover of penguins. She was giving, joyful, and very trusting, qualities her mother, Kristen Rucinski, says she instilled in her. Justina grew up in poverty in Burlington, Iowa. She was raised by a single mother. She was one of 7 children. Her parents never had a stable relationship, and so eventually they went their separate ways. The town she grew up in was a medium-sized river town with a small town feel. It was safe, close-knit community with very, very little crime. Her family cooked and baked at home very, very often, especially since they had a limited income and, remember, a very large household. Baking in particular was something Justina absolutely loved, and it just created a special bond with her and her mom. After high school, Justina had 2 children with her boyfriend. And as a stay-at-home mom, she leaned into her passion for baking. And it all started with a cake she baked for her sister's Sweet 16 party. That moment sparked something in her, and she decided, I'm going to start my own business. She was genuinely happy, passionate, and incredibly talented. So she just kept going, and everyone said that she was a true artist, and baking was like her superpower, her calling. She built a loyal clientele, and she used social media to promote her work. Unfortunately, eventually, like her mom, she became a single mother, and this was after splitting with her partner. She became close friends, though, with one of her clients, a single mom as well named April Kenny. Their lives were similar, and their kids got along really well. They often barbecued together. They just hung out, did girl things, and the kids played while the moms bonded. Most of Justina's sales came through social media. As her business grew, she was on social media even more. And then she finally had her own dedicated space, which is her own home. She had her own space, her own home with her kids. She felt so proud. She felt safe, and she continued to bake out of her home. In 2018, someone sent roses to her doorstep, which also served again as her place of business. But there was no note, there was no sender, and she found it odd, but she wasn't alarmed by it. Remember, Justina was just a happy girl who just was very trusting. Because she was an unlicensed home baker, the law required her to include her home address on every label. So unlike a traditional bakery, customers had to know where the goods came from, so she had to post her business. She was proud of her work, and the community continued to adore her. In March of 2019, she posted an emotional video. She was tearing up, and she thanked everyone for their support. But shortly after that, things took an incredibly dark turn. On Valentine's Day, 2019, she received a handwritten card, pages long, but again, no name, there was no signature. That's when things started to feel a bit creepy. Justina just was shocked. She was scared. It felt really personal. And she actually told her therapist, Annalie Moody, about it, saying that she had no idea who could have sent it. She wasn't dating anybody. It was a complete stranger, and it just left her pretty shaken up. So she took to social media. She posted about it, and she was trying to make light of it. And then she said, it's probably a murderer. And her followers were responding. And after that, the gifts and cards absolutely stopped. But the fear didn't. Like, in the back of her mind, she's like, who could that be? And remember, she lives where her place of business is. People have her address. On August 13, 2019, Justina messaged April about the stress she was dealing with from her ex, the father of her children. They shared custody, and he was trying to keep the kids longer than agreed upon, and Justina couldn't find the custody papers and was incredibly overwhelmed. She was shaking and sweating. April came over to help her. Look, they eventually found the paperwork, and Justina texted her ex, reminding him of their custody agreement. I think she sent him a screenshot or whatever, because he's like, I'm keeping the kids, right? So must be hard dealing with that and just having baby daddy issues. But it seemed like she was going through that often, and it was just interfering with her business as well. April said that when she left, Justina was home alone, and she did seem a bit calmer. And she was finding her pace again, went back to handling her orders. Later that night, around 8 p.m., April texted Justina to check in. Justina responded saying, hey, I'm fine. April got her kids ready for bed and then tried to follow up again. But this time, there was no answer. Something fell off with, April. she just felt like something was off, but maybe it was like kind of residual paranoia after dealing with like that stressful environment at Justina's house. So she just kind of brushed it off. So later that night around 8 p.m., April texted Justina to check in. Justina responded saying, "I'm fine." April got her kids ready for bed and then tried to follow up again. But this time there was no answer. Something felt incredibly off. Justina usually replies quickly. And then Justina called her. She was hysterical. She was screaming. April couldn't actually understand her. And moments later, Justina showed up at her house. Her hair was wet. Her clothes were ripped. There was like blood splatter on her. She was crying. She was terrifying. And April did everything she could to keep her calm. But what Justina was going to tell her next was absolutely horrifying. So Justina had been running low on money. Baking was her only source of income. That's when she received an email from someone named Emily Behrens. The woman wanted to place a large $2,000 order, enough to help Justina cover bills and care for the kids. Like, she wanted to buy them new clothes. And because the order was rushed, Justina told the client that payment had to be made up front. That was like one of her requirements because she has to buy goods and get it going a lot quicker. So Emily agreed to drop off the check. So the same night April had left, there was a knock on the door. This was at Justina's house. She opened the door expecting Emily. Remember, Emily was going to come by, give her the check up front, $2,000, right? So instead of Emily, she was confronted with a tall, older man, and he was about 3 times Justina's size, okay? So fairly large, and he had come to pay for the cookies. And at first, it didn't really raise any red flags because this is normal for her line of work, right? People come to her house and give her payments. But when he tried to pay the card, it kept declining, and they're standing outside of her house. He said he'd call Emily and have her bring cash and ask for a paper receipt. Again, nothing seemed off, yet then he decided to step inside of her home. She felt uneasy, but he seemed polite enough. He noticed her eyes were red and then gently asked if she was okay. She gave him a brief explanation about her custody situation and what she was going through, and he told her, "You know what, I have a close friend who's a lawyer, and that apparently this guy could help her." She began to trust him, believing maybe he was a blessing in disguise. Ladies, let's not be so trusting. Because I know there had to be something inside of her that was telling her something is off. And she kept just thinking, no, everybody is so nice. Everyone's nice. They're buying my cookies. This can't be something negative. But remember, now you have an entire man in your living room. And it's late at night and no one knows this person is there. Okay? So, ladies, we got to be a bit more cautious than this. Then he said something strange. "I know your mom." That absolutely confused her. He said that she looked stressed, and he offered to crack her neck, and that he was a masseuse. I'm like, when I was researching this, I'm like, he's a masseuse now. So this man shows up to her house, is now in her house, inside of her house. He has a card that keeps declining. He's calling Emily, and now he is gonna massage her neck and crack her neck. That I don't understand. Like, my gut would be screaming like, run, right? But she was like, it's fine, you know? And so he cracks her neck, right? And starts like touching her shoulders, and then turns around and goes, "Hold on, let me call my lawyer friend," right? So then now she sits down like nothing's wrong, turns her back on him, and when that happens, he comes behind her, covers her mouth, and presses a gun to her head. He tackles her to the ground and said if she screams, he'd blow her, and I quote, "fucking brains out." She wanted to fight him, but she recalls being obviously completely terrified. She begged him not to hurt her, and all she can think about is, "I have my babies, I have my children." And she says to him, "Please don't hurt me. I have children. I'm a mom. I don't want to die." He then proceeds to zip tie her, tore her clothes off, and sexually assaulted her. Then he told her to take a shower. For some reason, he just thought like, yeah, I'm just going to wash this away and no one's going to catch me, right? So he's like, go ahead, go take a shower. afterwards, he told her he needed $40 and that he needed that $40 now. But then she's like, I don't have any cash. So he forced her at gunpoint to drive to an ATM. She withdrew exactly $40 and he took exactly $40, handed it to him, and he just got out of the car and left. How incredibly terrifying. She's, I'm sure, just happy to be alive, but I just can't believe the audacity. I just can't believe that someone would just do that and just walk away. Some of these people just believe like they can never be caught, right? They have just this idea that they are just invincible and they can do this to people. Justina immediately called April, who called the police. Then they went to the hospital. April also called Justina's mom. Now they're all at the hospital together. Everyone was shaken. Justina, unfortunately, doesn't know who this man is. She's never seen him in her life. So he's unrecognizable to her even after everything that happened. But she remembered one detail that stood out. Justina recalls this man telling her, I know your mom. Okay. And then she remembers that her mom told her about a girlfriend she works with, someone who has an abusive husband. He apparently had raped his own wife, beaten her with a hammer, and sent her to the ER. So it's something that really stood out to her because it's incredibly shocking. Justina asked for this man's name, and they went on Facebook and searched. And there he was, Stephen Manouk. The police arrested him before Justina could even leave the hospital. So they were on it. She stayed with April for safety, so she couldn't go back home. Meanwhile, police searched Stephen Manouk's home. They found the zip ties, they found the gun, and his DNA was collected. He was held on $355,000 bond. And since I'm guessing he'd even have $40 to his name, there was no way he was making that bail. And to me, even having a bail amount for this type of crime is just mind-boggling to me. Like, because the amount of no fucks you have to give to just show up to somebody's house, walk in, and just do that to them is just, this person is not, they don't have scruples. I don't know if that's, I translate things from Spanish all the time, like, so hopefully that's a word. If not, we've just made a word. Justina was broken. She blamed herself. She blamed her business. Like, she didn't want to bake cookies anymore. She didn't want to bake. She didn't want to do anything because she just felt like her business was what brought on this horrible tragedy. She couldn't even shower. She couldn't sleep. She stopped trusting people. 3 months later, Stephen Manouk went to trial. He pled not guilty, and unbelievably, he claimed that the sex was consensual. Oh, these people, man. His defense attorney argued that this was going to be a she said, he said kind of case, but Justina wasn't going to be silenced. She stood in the courtroom, no longer in zip ties, dude, fully in her power, and she faced him. She looked right at him and told him, you took a piece of my soul. She told the jury how he stalked her, how he used social media, and how he got her home address to track her down. She also believed that he had been the one sending her all these anonymous gifts the whole time. On November 25, 2019, Stephen Manouk was convicted, found guilty, sentenced to 25 years in prison. Her case also changed the law. The bill was passed in Iowa, eliminating the requirement for home bakers to include their home address on labels, making it safer for women to pursue their dreams without fear. This can happen to anyone. Social media can open doors, but it can also allow those monsters to walk through them. So you guys be safe. Don't post everything on social media. I know you guys might have found me because of social media. However, we have to find a way to not post everything or even post our real time. Like, I personally will post once I've left a place because you just never know who's watching you. You never know who is, just becoming obsessed. Again, people have access to us in a way that we've never seen before. So ladies, gentlemen as well, be safe and don't post everything on your social media. Thank you for listening to Slaying with Santos. New episodes drop every week. Be sure to follow, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, stay informed, stay alert, and stay safe.